Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your afternoon. I'm Jason DaPonte. I'm the moderator for this session. And the session is on future finance. And I'm surprised it's not even more packed because I'm a producer, and I know there's a lot of producers here. And how are we going to finance this project is always one of the big questions in this space, especially as the business models are changing constantly. A slight change to our bill this afternoon. Unfortunately, one of our speakers couldn't be here, so we've dragged Gael from Moxie up on stage to tell you about his company, which is only 2 days old. So talk about future finance. This is brand new. And then we've got Phil Parker, who's going to tell you about a project that he's about to launch. So we're right at the cutting edge of two new takes on ways of funding digital media projects. And I'm excited to find out as well. I just ran a crowdfunding campaign for one of my projects, and it was fairly successful, but a whole documentary it does not finance. So I'm hoping that maybe these guys can shed some light on it for us. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce Phil Parker, who's going to talk about Be Creative.
Okay. Hi. I'm going to sort of stroll about because I find sitting really sort of limiting, especially this time of day. If we can kick off. Are we ready to go? Slides? Wise? No? Yay.
There we go.
That's me. Okay. I'm going to be boring at this point and say I'm going to do the three things you expect me to do. I'm going to give you a load of statistics. I'm going to throw some words at you, jargon. I'm going to ask you to rethink how you use it. And then I'm going to reference Steve Jobs because that's what we're all meant to do at this point in the proceedings. So let's kick off. Crowdfunding and financing. 6 billion value generated by crowdfunding in 2009. 6.2 projected by Gartner in 2013. Huge numbers already, way beyond, say, the budget of any drama department anywhere on the planet. But these are old, believe it or not. These figures were put out at the end of last year. They're already outdated, and I'm about to show you why. This is the classic example of crowdfunding currently going on. Little community village in Wales needs money to raise funds to help put their community centre together. They go on to a crowdsourcing site, and it's social crowdfunding. We all sort of know this. They're out to raise about 28,000. If you want to contribute, the site closes on Sunday, so you can save a community village in Wales at this point. The other thing we all know is this sort of stuff. This guy's trying to raise 20,000 to make his web series. He's based in San Francisco. And he's expecting to raise that by the 2nd of April. So I put these two slides up so you can be active participants in this event. You can save a community hall by the weekend, and you can get a web series up and running just by contributing. Kickstarter, though, is the important word on that screen, and this is why. Funding Exile Entertainment raised 1.5 million from 30,000 people when they only wanted 900,000. And they did that in a 5-week campaign. Double Fine Productions wanted to raise 400,000. They hit their goal in 9 hours. They surpassed 1 million in 24 hours, and they earned 3.3 million in total. This was before they had a product. Crowdsourcing for creatives in the gaming sector has completely outstripped every other form. Crowds have changed. We need to think differently about what a crowd is and how it works, and we need to understand why people contribute this level of money to things that we want to do. These are the sorts of level of money that means you can start a TV station, leave alone contribute to one. So, how does this work? Well, donations is one model of crowdsourcing we've all sort of know about. The idea you give money to something like the Kickstarter stuff to help someone make something. We sort of understand that model. What most people don't realize is the donation that talent is traditionally given to the traditional industries. Most talent has to donate time and effort prior to actually getting a reward. And most of that time and effort is written off. So actually, we've always had a massive donation culture around IP creation and talent giving. The second model we have available to us is lending. Now, lending we all sort of understand, I lend you some money, you lend me something back. Lending has been a major part of the creative industries in a totally different way before as well, in the sense that a tremendous number of people have deferred their fees in feature filmmaking for a very, very long time. The whole independent sector in America and Europe has basically worked on a deferred fee system. Again, talent has lent themselves to the industry in the hope that they would get a return. You might notice there's a theme emerging here about where the talent is actually giving away things in the hope that something is going to come back. This is one of the driving points I want to make out of this talk. Investment. We get investment. The idea that you put up money, or the idea that you get a return back. Now then, crowdfunding means investment's changing. The pattern of investment's changing. Who gives is changing. Who drives the creative industries is potentially changing. And what is interesting for me is how do we turn this crowdsourcing investment model into a talent supporting model? How do we actually make sure that the talent that's been doing all these donations and lendings for generations actually starts getting seriously rewarded in their own terms rather than on the terms that the contract says? So where do we go and how do we rethink this model? 6 reasons why people engage. Again, this is in terms of crowdsourcing. People have answered questionnaires all over the planet. Why did you give? Why did you do these things? And these are the 6 reasons that have come up consistently. To gain access to facilities and service, you sort of get that. You give money, you get something back in some way. You do a sort of barter exchange. To create resources. People regularly join in gaming situations because they can actually create resources. You know, it's like in Farmville where you go in at one level, you put in some extra resources and you get something extra back. To obtain skills. Believe it or not, this is why most gamers actually enjoy gaming. They want to get better at it. They want to actually develop their skill. It's a sort of driving force that keeps them engaged on a long time. The stats from the last session were really interesting. I really seriously think you should go back to those infographics that were on the screen because the social gaming world, which I'll come on to in a moment, is absolutely phenomenal at this level. To obtain status. Now, this is getting closer to what I think is a core value. Believe it or not, most people on this planet actually feel they're undervalued. And in fact, they require status. People want to be rewarded for the things. They want to be valued by the people around them. They want to have status amongst their peers. And it's one of the major things that drives crowdfunding and crowds generally. To belong. Again, a big emotional part of this. The fact that you're part of a huge worldwide community when you join a particular network, a particular crowd, is really, really important. And to share. Every single session I've been in today has talked very much about the fact that people are sharing things. Every single one of the 360 presentations was about this idea that people could join in and share and be part of something. Sharing things with people is really, really important. It's why crowds work. So here's the philosophical bit, the jargon bit. Basically, I want you to stop thinking of crowds as being something other, that it's about crowdfunding and it's crowdsourcing. That's not how I think you should think of crowds. Crowds is all of us. Crowds is actually audience, it's fans, it's everything. Everything that television's ever been, everything that gaming is, everything that feature film has sought to create is all about bringing human beings together and forming crowds in one way, shape, or form. What the new technology allows us to do is to work as a crowd very, very differently. So, technology is the doorway. The web, new means, faster broadband, everything that's changing on the planet is allowing us to work as a crowd radically differently. We're not there yet. We don't have all the models. But gaming in particular, and especially I hope through the financing mechanism I've just shown you, is radically changing the landscape of where the money flows, who it flows to, and how it's becoming more talent-driven potentially. Engagement is the desire. We actually do want to engage. As human beings, we want to engage with other human beings, with other people we can be involved with. That is actually what has always made us watch TV. It's always made us want to go and see a movie. It's why we play games. It's why we do every digital thing we can possibly think of. We want to engage with our world, and ideally we want to engage with other people while we're engaging with our world. We want to feel we belong and we share. So in that sense, emotion is the key. To understand how crowds really work, and I mean across all platforms. So in that sense, I'm talking about all audiences, all fan groups, everything. You have to understand why human beings do what they do at an emotional level. This is not about technology. It's not about faster clicks. It's not about the fact that you can put a piece of software together and it suddenly tells the advertisers what everyone's doing at 6 o'clock in the evening in Australia. That's fun. It's interesting. But it's not why those people in Australia are doing that thing at 6 o'clock in the evening. They're doing it because there's an emotional need that's being met. So, where do we go from there? Everyone has been treated unfairly. This is one of my key buzz statements. I've used this in a lecture for the last 15 years. Because there is an audience on this planet that I can't stand in front of and make that statement. Every single one of you has been treated unfairly. In that sense, everyone has suffered injustice. Now think about that for a moment. Every single human being on this planet has suffered injustice. Why does that matter? Well, actually, it's what's driven television series, investigative dramas, etc., in every society across the planet. It's our desire to find a way of expressing the injustice we felt through others and sharing in that has made police series the most popular format for television drama everywhere. And it is why investigative thrillers in cinema still work. And it's why, at the moment in gaming, the conspiracy thriller is still the most popular structure for console-based games, the biggest, most expensive development. Now that emotion is only one of 8 major emotional themes. I haven't time to do the other 7 here, but I just wanted to hit you with that basic one and go, look guys, this is knowledge we have, we know how it works, it's worked on all the platforms, understand this is what you're dealing with. The Steve Jobs reference. Edward Land was Steve Jobs' inspiration. In 1957, he said this in the Generation of Greatness speech at MIP. The essence of democracy is the absolute faith that while people must cooperate, the first function of democracy, its peculiar gift, is to develop each individual into everything that he might be. Bear in mind, this is 1957, so it's all he references. But I submit to you that when in each man the dream of personal greatness dies, democracy loses its real source of future strength. Now, why put up a quote like this in the context in which we're talking about crowdsourcing and the creative industry? Look at that last phrase and change it to this. This is the power of crowds. This is why creative industries exist. It's what drives them, and it's where we belong. If we lose sight of this, we lose sight of what we're doing. And that brings me to this. I'm not selling Be Creative. What I'm talking about here is the sort of work that we're doing and about to build on is about going back to this really source crowd-made material. On the one hand, the mashup is about bringing talent together on equal terms, where they own their IP collaboratively, they can work collaboratively. The donation and the spend and the lending part of the crowdsourcing that's gone on for centuries is actually recognized. The workshop is the middle ground, where we contribute to help people make their IP of value. We bring that to the table. That's our investment. The Be Creative Lab is where the big boys come on board and actually for 3 months guarantee that they'll work for free with the talent that we've brought to a certain level of development so that we can produce new work on every single digital platform going. And I don't just mean games, social games, TV, web. I mean everything. Graphic novels, e-publishing, everything. because this, I think, is the future. It is about the fact that from now on, we're all in this. Everyone can be part of it. You can be a creative for 3 hours a night in your bedroom, and you should be able to earn money from that as far as I'm concerned. If you want to work with a team of people who share a vision that you can share in, you can belong to a global audience. You can be part of that global crowd. This is where crowdfinancing finally gets us. That's me.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, at the beginning of your talk, you were talking about the fact that some of the big campaigns that have been successful on Kickstarter have started before there is even a product available for people to see. When people come to be creative when it launches, what do you expect them to have? What should they bring if they want to come to this party of creatives?
If they're coming to the party, we want to come to with as little as possible. I mean, I'm getting approached by companies now who've got great ideas already sort of half formed and saying, look, can we get into your process? Because we like the process so much. But the ambition of Be Creative was that literally anyone, like an 8-year-old kid through to a 75-year-old grandfather, you know, could basically go, you know, I've got this drawing, I've got this story idea, I've got this character that's really bugged me for a while, I've got a song that I don't know what to do with, or I've got a piece, you know, a piece of music or a piece of animation. And we'll help put that together, basically, and form teams. Some of that will be automated, some will be self-selected. And the space is basically where those teams can work together and build up what we call dramatic worlds for as long as they like, basically. And then if we like some of those, then we start putting resources available to them to build those to a really commercial proposition.
And how do you measure which ones you like? How will you know, or how will the teams that you work with know which ones are the good ones and which ones are maybe ones that don't need to continue?
Well, the simple answer to that is there's a set of criteria that people have to meet to get to the next stage. So that's really open. We plan to be open with everything as much as possible. 2, the developers who are involved in that middle into that quality threshold will look at the teams, talk to the teams and go, look, guys, you're just not talking to each other enough. This is basically one-person show. We don't think that's actually the way to build this properly. If you want to work collectively, which is what we want, and we think your strength is in your collectivity, then do it. And there'll be a real sort of, you know, real-time discussion about that.
Okay. And what happens to rights? So I bring a character, which is a scribble.
Yeah.
I contribute it.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of people work on it.
Yeah.
Your team develop it.
Yeah.
A brand come and say that they want to adopt it and do something with it.
Right.
If I had that starting sketch,
Yeah.
what happens?
You get points for the initial contribution.
Okay.
You get another set of points depending on how much you put into the point where we take it into the workshop.
Okay.
And then all of those points are iterated up into a talent corridor. And depending on the final negotiations with the corridor of distribution, so like, for instance, in some corridors you can negotiate a deal where you know, the people who are distributing it only take 20% and 80% is available to the talent and all the producers. In other situations, you're pushed the other way. And we'll basically ensure that that the IP is corridored all the way through.
So it's in proportion to the points that you earn
Yeah.
throughout the process.
Yeah. And also, we're not in the business of handing it over. I mean, our deals with all the people that we're working with, the big companies we're working with, is basically saying, you have access to this material on the basis that you're going to work on this platform with it or in this way with it, and you guarantee the talent direct access to revenue.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll have questions at the end, but now I'd like to introduce Gael Solignac-Erlong from Moxie, and he's going to tell you a little bit about his brand new venture. And again, we've just dragged him up on stage to replace the speaker who couldn't make it, so bear with him for not having slides, etc. He's improvising for us.
Okay, yes, I will try to improvise something interesting. So Moxie France is a company come from US. Moxie exists in US from 6 years ago in the Publicis Group area. We work for branded entertainment development, donc for brand. We work for content. We work for some of an online advertising campaign. But we start from the media. We are not an advertising agency.
Okay.
And regarding the subject of how to finance contents, we are in the good area. We are in the area of the brand. what we need to communicate at the audience differently than just by advertising. And we start by a brief. For example, we work at this moment with for Renault cars, for the launch of the Twizy cars, the electric cars. And we propose to develop an endorsement program around David Guetta, the DJ.
Oh, yeah.
And we are a support of David Guetta on his label to produce his new video clip. A clip come from his electro album. They don't add budget, EMI capital for to promote this electric album. So Renault be the support of that. We were in Los Angeles 2 months ago with Bertrand Sommy, a great director, great French artistic director. And we produce an amazing video clip. We will be on air on Vivo and YouTube at the beginning of April, in 3 days. It's a good example how a brand could be a support for an artist, for a talent. Maybe tomorrow for a movie project. We have some great movie projects for luxury brands in your pocket. How we can help to develop a good content with talent in a different way, but with crowdsourcing or with the natural development of content by the natural producers. What else? For me, we don't add difference between brand content and content. We're just talking about program, and I think it will be the next frontier. Brand content come very premiumness, win in premiumness. We work with a great director, great artist, etc., with great designer. And for me, we have an audience. We have a different channel, TV, web, etc., and we have program. And this definition of brand content is dead. And I think the future will be for the good program. We see today at the MIPCube how the difference between TV and web will not be very high in the future. In the future, it's tomorrow. In a few months, few years. And I think that's the reason why it's very exciting to launch a company like Moxie-Paris now. It's just the beginning of a great area for the advertiser and for all the people who are looking to develop a program differently. But what it was the case today with the system. Yeah. Voilà. That's the big idea of the moment for in Moxie-Paris office.
Okay, great, thanks. So it's interesting what you said about the difference between content and branded content is over. But lots of people who work in the industry have grown up with those differences in how they produce and how they finance their projects. What type of advice would you give to someone who has gone through the kind of traditional commissioning processes of talking to channels, talking to commissioners, pitching in that way, to talking to brands? What are the types of things they need to be aware of, and what do they need to have in their proposals to make them viable?
First advice is to believe at his idea and to defend his idea with the brand.
Okay.
I think we are many new marketing directors who understood that if you want to catch the audience with their contents, it's not like advertising. They need to, how we say in French, lâcher prise. We need to let the producer and the creator develop a credible program, and to believe, to keep the faith of the fact that they could develop program with a brand, not brand content, and to keep his capacity to create a good content.
So it's talent is still lying at the heart of...
Stay that they are, keep the face of the quality of their own content, and don't try to move the idea to be just connected with the DNA of the brand at the first level.
Okay.
Second advice is to understand the brand.
Okay.
Quand même malgré tout, because when you work with a marketer, it's not the same as if you work with a producer. So you can keep the earth of your idea, of your content, but you need to listen what is the story of the brand, what is the DNA of the brand, etc., etc. And last one, last but not least, advice. I think brand could be a support, but I think that there are many other ways to finance, how we say with your friends, to finance a program, and that's it.
Okay. So Phil, Be Creative is also doing this connecting brands and ideas. Have you got any thoughts about what the brands that you're talking to and are going to engage on Be Creative are looking for, and what they are expecting when ideas come to them?
It's very early days. I mean, what's interesting at the moment, it's the agencies that are driving that conversation. And I think the agencies are looking at it as, you know, Be Creative is basically going to produce a phenomenal talent pool and a lot of new original materials coming through. And I mean, this is based on like 20 years of my experience. I mean, I've been developing new talent all over the planet now for nearly 20 years. And it's like, you just cannot imagine the quality of work that is sitting in people's bedrooms and front rooms, and it's just not getting out to an audience. You know, I just get gobsmacked periodically when I set up a workshop in some country I've never been in before, and people bring things into the room, and you're going, Jesus wept, you know, this is so well thought through, or this is so well produced, and yet nobody knows this exists. And there is no route to market for these guys. And so I think the agencies looking at the brands are going, we need new ideas, we need new images, we need new content, and we want to engage with the crowd. It's about authenticity as well. I mean, one of the reasons I put the democracy slide up is that one of the things that I love about a lot of discussion around the web, and has really been true for a very long time, it is politicized discussion. It is about people are going, you know, no, we want to know what's going on behind this. We don't want the brand to be telling us what we should be buying. You know, if the brand gets involved, it's got to be at a level that's open, and there's got to be that transparency there. And you know, those sorts of discussions for me are really, really important, because it's like shifting the way we think about things and how we do things.
Okay, great. Well, thank you both very much for your insight. Thank you, everyone, for listening. I hope you found it informative, and hope we'll see you at the next couple of sessions.
Any more questions? No, I've done a bunch of questions.
Yeah, thanks.
Cool.
Our speakers are going to go over to the Meet the Speakers corner as well if you want to talk to them some more.
Yeah, we're in the back. Let's take this.